All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our virtual seminar series. Today we have the pleasure of having Alan Gerard, one of our master's students, who is with the National Weather Service in Jackson, Mississippi, going to be speaking to us about weather support for emergency management. Alan is a meteorologist in charge of the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Jackson, Mississippi, a position he's held since 2002. Prior to that, he was a science and operations officer and a senior forecaster in the same office. He's also held positions at the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Cleveland, Ohio, and the National Weather Service Office in Columbus, Ohio. Alan's a past president of the National Weather Association. He has published articles in numerous publications, including National Weather Digest, Electronic Journal of Operation Meteorology, and Weather and Forecasting. He's a graduate of St. Louis University, the home of Dr. Yoda also, and is currently, as I mentioned, pursuing his master's in science and emergency management at Norrisville University. So what we'll do is we'll open it up to Alan, and I'll let Alan take control of how he wants to answer questions for you. And at the very least, at the very end, Alan will be able to answer questions. Alan, it's all you.
Okay, thanks, Dr. H. Can you all hear me all right? Someone could just give me just to make sure. Okay, great. Well, good afternoon. I appreciate being invited to give this talk. As Dr. H mentioned in my introduction, I've been the meteorologist in charge here of the Weather Service in Jackson for about 10 years, and needless to say, I've encountered a lot of notable weather events in that time period. I was the MIC here during Hurricane Katrina, which, even though we don't have responsibility for the coast, we obviously dealt with a lot of impacts from that hurricane. We've had a number of other hurricanes and tropical systems, a number of tornado outbreaks. It's an active place to work, and we've really developed a really close working relationship with emergency management here, particularly in Mississippi, but also in some of the surrounding states. And in fact, I just spent most of this week at the State Emergency Management Conference up in Tunica, Mississippi. And I'm going to basically spend my time today talking about emergency management and what we with the National Weather Service do in support of emergency management. That's really one of our primary functions, at least for our office here in Jackson. If you have a question and want to type something in on the chat or stop me at some point, that's great. But also at the end, I'll open it up for questions as well. So just to give some background for those of you that may not be familiar, the National Weather Service is a federal agency. We're actually part of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which in turn is part of the Department of Commerce. And as a federal entity, we've been around since 1870, shortly after the Civil War. President Grant founded what was called the Weather Bureau then as part of the military, and through time we evolved, moved through different agencies, different departments, and eventually ended up in NOAA when it was formed by President Nixon back around 1970. The Weather Service, I've included our mission here just to kind of show where emergency management fits into this. Our primary mission is the protection of life and property from hazardous weather and other, along with hazardous weather, we also do deal with tsunami and space weather issues for the United States and its territories. And this graphic here shows how the Weather Service is organized. We have 122 field offices around the United States that support the local communities. You know, weather is obviously a local phenomenon. There's a lot of very localized effects that go into the kind of weather you actually see at a certain point. So it's important to have people in the geographic areas around the country where they're familiar with the weather patterns, familiar with the unique challenges of that area, and are familiar with the customers and the government officials that are responsible for public safety in those areas. Along with the 122 local offices, we have a number of national centers that support the local offices and also support private meteorologists. The weather community goes beyond obviously just the Weather Service. You have private companies like AccuWeather that's based up in Pennsylvania, the Weather Channel, that kind of provide more tailored support for different private entities. And the main national center that the Weather Service has is the National Center for Environmental Prediction, which is located outside of Washington, and they do a lot of the computer modeling and also a lot of the national forecasting. And then some other entities you might be familiar with is the Storm Prediction Center, which is based in Norman, Oklahoma. They do the severe thunderstorm and tornado forecasting for the country. The National Hurricane Center, which is based in Miami and is part of the National Weather Service. They do the hurricane and tropical forecasting for the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific Oceans. And then another somewhat lesser known group, but one that's gathering more attention in recent years is the Space Weather Prediction Center, which is out in Colorado and which is responsible for giving predictions of things like solar flares, solar storms, the kind of things that can impact communications and the electrical grid here in the United States and worldwide. This graphic here, I'm just trying to show what some of us in the Weather Service like to call kind of the warning triad. It's our position that there are really three key pillars of how the public gets the weather information that they need to keep themselves safe when there's hazardous weather going on. You have the Weather Service, emergency management, and the media. And it's really important for those three entities to work closely in concert to make sure that the public is getting the information they need to protect themselves, their families, and that government agencies are getting the information they need to help keep people safe. And obviously, emergency management plays a key role in that. And it's really been our position, the Weather Service is broken up into 4 continental U.S. regions, and our office here is a part of the southern region of the Weather Service. And we obviously deal with a lot of hurricanes and severe weather down here. We go from Florida over to New Mexico, and really our philosophy here in our region at any event, and I think in most of the Weather Service, is that emergency management is really our key partner in our meeting our primary mission of saving lives and property. So, then you get down to how do we do that? Well, the focus in recent years in the Weather Service has really been become on what we call providing decision support services, which basically means we're trying to provide weather information in a format that enables emergency managers and other key government agencies and other key partners to make the kind of decisions that they need to make on a daily basis. And as part of that, we've developed this concept called emergency response meteorologists, which are basically, we're trying to train a number of the meteorologists that work for the Weather Service to be able to provide support and work more closely with emergency management. Part of that has been going through the ICS coursework, most of the staff here in our office in Jackson has been through ICS 100, 200, and 700, giving them training on how to do briefings, and then just some other specialized coursework to try to enable their abilities to work with emergency management. So next, I'm going to talk about several services that we provide here, and I'm just speaking for the office here in Jackson. A number of these services are provided by a number of offices around the country, but and I'll kind of try to differentiate between those. NWS chat, I'm going to spend some time on. Some of you may be familiar with that. GoToMeeting and multimedia briefings that we do for the emergency management community. Special web pages, some of the training and education we've gone through, the Storm Ready program, and something we've been getting more and more into, which is providing both on-site and remote support for events such as hazmat response, response after major disasters, but then also for things like large venue events. Let me ask it with a show of check marks or hands. Are any of you familiar with NWS chat or have accounts on NWS chat? I see 1X. Well, just to give you an idea, NWS chat is a program that was developed in in parts of Nate. It's also, I see your comment, it's also a media outreach tool as well. This is an initiative that came out of actually the Birmingham, Alabama office of the Weather Service, and it's pretty much spread nationwide now. And basically, it's an interactive chat portal where the Weather Service, emergency management, the media, and other government entities can interact in real time to discuss ongoing weather concerns, feed damage reports, requests for information, that kind of thing, back and forth between the different entities that are responsible for severe weather response, recovery, broadcasting, that sort of thing. And this next slide here is an example of, this is the actual NWS chat log from April 24th, 2010, from our office here. Each office has their own chat room. And if you kind of glance through this, you can see there's some local TV stations, some amateur radio people, media, and emergency managers, all feeding information and questions back and forth. And I call to your attention in the kind of in the middle, you see some reports of it's actually from a Weather Service person that was out chasing on the day of numerous buildings leveled at Highway 16, and then damage path from storm was approximately 3/4 of a mile wide in Yazoo City, and ham radio reporting a tornado on the ground, estimating a half mile to a mile wide, buildings damaged, trees down, power lines down. This is the kind of information that we feed back and forth during severe weather events. This was, some of you may remember, there was about 150 mile long EF4 tornado that went across most of kind of just right through the central part of Mississippi back on this date. If any of you have seen the show Storm Chasers, they were on this storm as it was moving across parts of the Mississippi Delta on this day. And We have really found this to be an invaluable tool of getting information very rapidly to emergency managers and back from emergency management. Along with passing reports, we also pass along radar information when we're seeing something indicating an increasing, say, tornado risk or an increasing risk of just severe weather in a certain area. We can convey that information very quickly using the chat. And when we have a big severe weather episode going on, we may have 125 to 150 different entities from emergency management, broadcast media, and other government partners in the room at any one time. The next thing I wanted to talk about was some of the special briefings that we do. I've put up two graphics here just to kind of do an illustration. This first one on the left is actually a slide from the briefing that was done by the meteorologist in charge of the office in Mount Holly, New Jersey, Philadelphia area, in advance of Hurricane Sandy. Basically, it's a slide. They actually did a recorded multimedia briefing that they provided not only to their emergency managers, but to just the public in general through their Facebook site. And this particular slide was just he was really trying to get to the heart of that this was going to be a storm that created impacts that people along the coast had never seen before, and was really trying to urge people to take it seriously and get out of the barrier islands and from those surge vulnerable areas. The graphic on the right is from one of our briefings from about a week ago, showing the potential for strong to severe thunderstorms across our area of responsibility. Our office here in Jackson is responsible for 58 counties and parishes in central Mississippi, northeast Louisiana, and southeast Arkansas. And whenever we have significant weather events, we use a GoToMeeting software package to do briefings for our emergency management community here in the area. We invite state, local, county, parish emergency managers, as well as other state agencies to participate. And we usually give them like a 5 to 6 slide PowerPoint, really just trying to hit the highlights on timing and impact as far as a given weather event goes. And then also once a week on Monday, we do just a generic weather briefing for the same group, just to give them a kind of a heads up on what's expected weather-wise this week and what kind of issues they might want to be aware of for planning purposes as they go into each week, as far as any weather concerns they might have to deal with. Just wanted to take a minute to talk about some of the different web pages and products we provide that are kind of targeted toward emergency management. This is something that our office here in Jackson has just recently implemented in the last few weeks, called the SAFE page. And even though it's titled there, Situational Awareness for Everyone, it's really targeted primarily at emergency managers and other governmental decision support type or decision makers to provide support for the kind of information they need. And you can see it's kind of meant to be organized in an interactive way based around different categories of weather. We have one page that's for severe storms, one page that's for tropical weather, one for winter weather, and one for summer weather. And basically, this enables you to kind of page through some different forecast information based on the phenomenon. Like, for example, this is a winter weather page, and You can see it has forecast lows, forecast highs, ice accumulation, snow accumulation, storm reports, that kind of thing. And it's just kind of all organized in a way to make it hopefully user-friendly and able to be easily accessed. And this is the severe weather version of the safe page. And you can see it's got the main pane there is radar loop that also displays any warnings that are in effect. We also have a briefing slide there showing a severe weather potential. We have the Storm Prediction Center, severe weather outlooks, total rainfall forecast for the next several days. So hopefully it just kind of gives an overview for an emergency manager of all the critical things that they would need to know as far as dealing with a severe weather risk in our area. And then something else that you can get from the safe page, and this is something that's kind of in a stage of development, is an interactive forecast map, or excuse me, forecast page that basically shows an hour-by-hour forecast for temperatures, winds, sky cover, all the kind of different things that you would need to know if, say, you were doing a hazmat response or had some sort of critical outdoor situation going on where you needed weather information. This is actually for Lancaster several days ago. I just pulled this at random, but showing an hour-by-hour breakdown based on the forecast database that each office maintains. And not only can you get this in this kind of a format, if you prefer more of a chart type output, you can get it in this information, in this output here, showing temperature, relative humidity, winds, and probability of precipitation in a more of a chart graphical format. So, hopefully this is the kind of thing when an emergency manager or some sort of emergency response official has a need for weather information for a particular point, say due to a hazmat situation or something like that, they can get a quick first guess of expected weather conditions by looking at a graphic like this. The next topic I wanted to take a minute to talk about is Storm Ready. Storm Ready is a community recognition program that the Weather Service started about 10 years ago to basically kind of encourage increased relationships between the Weather Service and emergency management at a county and community level by basically recognizing those emergency management programs that had basically what the Weather Service recognizes as a solid program in weather warning, receipt, dissemination, and education. And you can see here on the slide, there's several areas that we look at an emergency management program. We basically have a checklist for a community based on the size of the community. A larger community has to have more capabilities. Looking at communications, how they receive warnings, how they monitor weather. In other words, do they have some sort of weather meteorological equipment? How do they disseminate warnings in the community to critical infrastructure such as schools, large commercial businesses, daycares, that kind of thing? What the emergency management program is doing in the community as far as education and preparedness, and ensuring that they have a formal hazardous weather plan on how to get weather information disseminated to the community and respond appropriately. And when a community, basically the way we evaluate this is they fill out The emergency manager fills out an application, submits it to the Weather Service, and then each office, each state has a team that's typically made up of 1 or 2 Weather Service people, someone from the state emergency management agency, and a local emergency manager. And they go in and tour the facilities, review the plans and the application, and once everything is to their satisfaction, they're recognized as a storm-ready community or county. And you can see this picture here is of a storm-ready ceremony that I was participating at in the city of Jackson here just about a month ago. And this map here just shows the storm-ready counties and communities across the United States. And I highlighted there Pennsylvania for those of you that are actually in Pennsylvania. You can see most of the counties in Pennsylvania are storm-ready. And there are also a number of smaller towns, communities that have been recognized as storm-ready. And we also have storm-ready universities and storm-ready supporters, which are things like amusement parks, malls, large businesses, factories, that kind of thing that can become storm-ready as well, and they get a storm-ready supporter designation. And there are a number of those across Pennsylvania as well. The next thing I'm going to turn to is what we've been getting into as far as direct support to emergency managers with regard to events, whether we're talking about hazmat response, large venue support, support after a major disaster. This is something that the Weather Service is becoming more involved in recent years. And earlier this year, we had a 2-day decision support workshop for our staff here to try to improve their capabilities as far as providing local on-site support. And this involved some media training, some training on doing briefings, some ICS type training, and basically took most of our staff through this. We worked in conjunction with MEMA, the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency. They provided some of the training to our staff on interacting with the media, on doing briefings, ICS type information. And that really helped get our staff more aware of the needs of emergency management and what kind of information is needed during high impact situations. And this is another thing we did some training on that I just wanted to show an example of. This is the high split cloud trajectory model. And basically, this is just showing an example of if you had some sort of a hazmat release in the Washington, D.C. area at different levels of the atmosphere above the ground, showing how the cloud would be transported by the winds, the lower levels in the blue and a little bit higher up in the red and then higher up in the green. And this is one of the things that we can provide to emergency management in the event of some sort of a chemical release to give them an idea of how a hazardous chemical release is going to be moved in the atmosphere and what kind of areas might need to be evacuated in the event of something being released that warrants public notification and evacuation of people near, say, a chemical plant that has some sort of an explosion or a nuclear facility, that kind of thing. over the last couple of years, one of the things that we've put together in order to ensure that we can go on site and support emergency management for these type of events is we put together a trailer. This is actually you all may be aware that after Katrina, FEMA brought in a lot of trailers for people to use as far as temporary housing. And then once all that, the need for that passed several years ago, those trailers became excess, and government agencies around here could get one from FEMA for free. So this is one of the FEMA excess trailers that we've taken and converted into a work area for us to be able to take out on site if there's some sort of a hazmat incident or some sort of an on-site support that we need to provide to emergency management in the field. And this just shows the interior of what we have in there. We have a workspace area, an area where we can provide briefings, including you can see there on the lower left-hand corner, we have a larger screen monitor where the on-site meteorologist can provide briefings to whoever he needs to, as well as there's an area for sleeping and bathroom area. So basically, we can be self-sufficient. We have wireless internet cards that we can take out there to have internet access, and we also have a BGAN satellite, which isn't as fast as far as getting information, but it would at least enable us to get some basic weather information out there on scene if necessary. Now, if it's a really big event, MEMA would have their remote access communication trailers and whatnot out there that we could piggyback off of, but it at least gives us some basic capabilities to be able to take out into the field to support emergency management needed. And I'm just going to show a few examples of where we've done some of this kind of work. This is there's a large Nissan auto assembly plant here just north of Jackson, and they had an exercise back a few years ago of a tornado hitting the plant. And this was actually before we had the trailer you saw in the previous slide. But basically, we were on site there providing the weather information for the actual tornado, trying to help them know how to respond, and then also to provide them weather support for the response phase of their exercise. This was an exercise in Jones County, Mississippi, southeast Mississippi, back in August of '09, where they were doing an exercise for basically three different types of possibilities: a tornado, a hazmat incident, and a terrorist response incident. And basically, we provided weather support for them, not only because, obviously, for the tornado and the hazmat, they needed weather support, but also because there was some severe weather going on at the time, and we were trying to provide them the weather information they needed to keep all of the people participating in the exercise safe from any weather concerns that were actually going on the day of the exercise. And this was an actual hazmat situation that occurred a couple of years ago in Covington County, which is again in southeast Mississippi, where we did deploy down into that area with our emergency response trailer. They had a large natural gas leak from a storage facility down there, and we provided on-site support for 3 days. There were thunderstorms threatening the area each day, and lightning was a significant concern. As lightning strikes near the area of the leak would have been a serious risk for potential explosion, from what I understand. And we provided a number of briefings down there on site as far as thunderstorm coverage, moving when thunderstorms were near the area to enable the crews that were working the area to remain safe and not be in danger from lightning and the potential issues that would have caused if there had been lightning strikes right at the site where they were working. And then that same county had an exercise about a year later to kind of run through some of the things they had learned from the January of 2011 episode, and see where they had been able to improve their response capabilities. We provided briefings as well as a run of that high split model that I showed earlier, and basically gave us the opportunity to interact with all these different partners and demonstrate the kind of capabilities that we have to do on-site support weather information for these types of events. And then this is just a quick list of a number of other events that we provided support to, either on-site or sometimes remotely here from the office. And you'll see in here a number of large venue type events, fairs, sporting, athletic events, that kind of thing. And as a government entity, we don't provide support directly to, say, an entity that's putting on a fair or a sporting team per se. We provide support to emergency managers or government entities that are working with those groups. So we're basically in the business of supporting the government entities themselves, and then obviously for most of these big venue events, emergency management is responsible for working with the say the fair organizers or the sport schools, say if it's a college football game, and then they work with them to utilize the information that we provide them to take whatever actions are necessary at the site to keep people safe. And something that we've been doing in relation to that is, along with this on-site support, we've also been coming up with ways to be better aware of what kind of activities are going on in our service area to be able to provide this kind of support from the office. So as emergency managers become aware of events that they know they need weather information for, they provide us the times, the location, and we enter them into a software package we've developed here in the office. And then we have a situation awareness display on our operations floor that updates with any events that are going on a given day, and includes the contact information for the emergency manager or for whatever emergency response official that's responsible for providing that particular event with information, to make sure that they're aware of any weather threats that could be a concern, whether it's thunderstorms, heavy rain, winter weather, just to make sure that that we're proactive in providing those emergency response folks the information they need to be sure that any events in their area have any safety information, any relevant hazardous weather information to keep people safe. And through all of this, one of the final things I'll mention is we've been working with MEMA, the State Emergency Management Agency, here over the last few months to develop a statewide on-site support concept where basically anytime that MEMA deploys their remote emergency operations center that they take out for large responses, that we would provide them with one or two meteorologists to go on site and provide them with weather support, because basically anytime they're out in the field, they're typically dealing with some sort of a situation that has weather sensitivity. And the more weather information we can provide them, the better their operations can be as far as effectiveness and also keeping emergency officials on the scene safe. So this is something that MEMA has become very, they really appreciate that kind of support and have become increasingly reliant upon it, as have the local emergency manager. So this is something we're trying to kind of formalize a little more officially as far as working with the state and local emergency management officials here in Mississippi to ensure that they have this kind of weather information whenever we have, say, a hazmat incident or, say, a tornado where you have a large number of emergency responders in a given area that would be vulnerable to any additional weather concerns. And I guess that's what I had as far as what we're doing here as far as working with emergency management. Hopefully you can see it's something that, speaking for our office here, we take as really one of our most important aspects of our job, and we really work a lot on to try to ensure that we're providing support for emergency management at all levels from FEMA down. And I know I probably went through a lot of stuff in a fairly short period of time. I'd be willing to take any questions that anyone might have.
All right, anybody have questions for Alan? Alan, I'm not sure if can you see if they raised their hand?
I haven't seen anybody raise a hand, so I guess I'm not sure if I can or not. Okay, I did, yeah, Keith.
I just wanted to make sure that somehow we get your presentation posted. There was a lot of nice resources on there that I'd like to take advantage of.
Yeah, Dr. H has the PowerPoint, and I think he's going to get it. Okay, Christina just said there.
Yeah, to answer that question, we take all the PowerPoint presentations and then we load them onto that master grad site. So this presentation, as well as all the previous presentations, whenever we have the PowerPoints, you can go on there and find them. So if you have a problem with that, just let me know, and Christina or I can direct you towards that. Other questions for Alan? All right. Well, if there's no other questions for Alan, I'd say, Alan, thank you very, very much. It's very, very informative. It's always nice to not only have somebody that's so well educated, but somebody that's one of our own to be able to inform us of, as we're well aware, the weather issues are our main issues as emergency managers, because they're the ones that all of us face every day. So with that being said, unless somebody has any further questions, I will say again thank you to Alan, and we'll see you all on the next virtual seminar.
Thank you all. I enjoyed it.